Miss J, Stone Go, Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados, Muscogee Radio, Mabo Hedget Wedgkis. Welcome to our program this week, just before Thanksgiving, big, huge holiday. Lots of people going to stuff themselves with Benoit in the next day or two and sit around groaning and watching TV and movies and football and fun stuff like that. But we hope you have a good holiday, and remember those who might not be as well off as you, and be able to share that humanity and wonderful feelings. Now, if you've been around town the last week or so, you'll know that's the wonderful grand reopening, if you want to call it, of the Muscogee Creek Nation Council House. After all these years, they've finally finished the renovations and restorations and opened it back up to the public on the 17th with a legislative session that took place, an official session that was played to a packed room, so to speak. It was full of Muskogee people. And they did work on some legislation, including one that we'll be talking about later on in the program. But to kind of give you a feel for what's been going on over the past years or so, we have a feature that we picked up on last year, and kind of runs over all the plans and everything that they had put into place for renovation of the council house. All right, well, let's get rolling here with our program. We want to welcome Veronica Pipestem. She's in to give us an update on the artifacts collection that we almost lost, and fill us in on the progress on the council house and the center, that's visitor center that's being built in the old Sharps department store. Well, first of all, welcome. Thank you for making time for our program today.
Thank you.
I have been doing some informal reports, sidewalk superintendent style, watching the workers on the roof and the bell tower, and like ants going in and out of the doorways there and carrying stuff in and out, and all the work that's been going on there. So let's start with the council house. Where are we with that project? Is it close to being completed? Is there an opening date? Any surprises or anything there?
The progress is coming along very smoothly. We're kind of getting to the point where we're way past the half point, probably about 75% done with the construction portion of that. Of course, we are still working on the reinterpretation of the inside, and really can't do a ton of work on moving in, of course, until they get the construction work done. But as you can see, they've completed the roof, and now they're working on the cupola and fixing all of those things on top. They're also going in and painting. They're redoing the floors, restoring the floors and the staircase. Of course, there's the two-tiered staircase, and one of the more interesting elements of that is that they're not going to touch the side that's original to the building, because there are original stairs still left there. We made that decision, and that side will be shut off but will be visible to visitors, because those are the steps that have been there since the building was created. And so we wanted people to be able to see those stairs, and they're very worn and they've got a lot of character. So
safety concerns, are they still in any kind of shape if they had to be used?
I'm sure they could be used, but we would probably very much discourage that.
Yeah, so. Prefer not to, okay. All right, now, last time I was in there was over a year ago, and noticed a lot of cracks in the walls where the building had settled, and the northwest corner was in danger of losing a pillar of stone and things like that. Have all of those, what I would call major problems, been corrected at this point?
Yes, they've gone in the northwest corner and shored up the foundation there, shored up that pillar. They've repaired all of that, and they are fixing any cracks that occurred because of the movement of that pillar. Those are all going in and being repaired, and they're going to wait and do the painting until all of that's done. So that when they say that they're ready to paint, that indicates to me that those cracks are being fixed and repaired. So,
well, that's quite a job to to do that without creating any further damage and making sure that the cracks are sealed properly and things like that. I remember from a small job in my bathroom where I had to replace a piece of drywall, and it's quite a job if you really look at it. Now we see, of course, trucks in and out hauling, I presume, used and discarded materials out, and new things going in. What will the interior look like once you got it the way you want it?
The interior will look like, and our target date for the interior is 1906, which obviously was the last year that the Creek Nation government operated before there was an attempt to terminate the nation and force the liquidation of all their assets, including the Creek National Records, the Council House, and any other holdings that the Muscogee Creek Nation had at the time. So when you go in, you will see things like partners' desks and standing teachers' desks. For example, the standing teacher's desk will go in the Board of Education, which also operated a school out of the Council House for many years. You'll see lots and lots of interpretive panels and photographs from that era of people. One of the more exciting things that we're kind of working on and we're working out the logistics of that right now, is putting a very, very large map up of the Creek Nation and the tribal towns in existence, and letting visitors who come who are Muscogee citizens or of Muscogee ancestry place pictures of themselves or of their ancestors on that map. And so it'll be kind of a community project that gets developed as we go forward, so that people can really see the vast land holdings of the Muscogee Creek Nation during that time, as well as the people who are represented there. Historic photos as well as contemporary photos. If people want to take a selfie and we can print it out and stick it up there as they visit, we'll do that too, so people can really participate in that.
Okay, well, that was going to be my next question. Someone wanted to put a photo of their daughter graduating from 5th grade or something like that, or were you really looking for more historical photos, things that trace our ancestry or represent various stages in our history?
We're looking for both. We have quite a collection of older photos and portraits of people. Of course, we don't have an exhaustive collection by any means, but if people want to bring those in, of course, we won't take the original. We'll make a copy of that photo and put it up for them. But we want those historic photos, but we also really want to have contemporary photos in there too, because we want visitors to understand in every part of the Council House as they visit who are not from Muscogee Creek Nation that the Council House, yes, was a historic building, but the Muscogee people are still very much alive and thriving today. And so we want to remind visitors of that in every element of the Council House that we curate. So
right, we're still around, folks, and it's a living, breathing entity there. Well, that's wonderful. Now, do you have a feel for the cost now? Have you had any surprises in your budget where you had to kick it up or got a break somewhere?
No, so most of the budget is now being managed through Kodak and the construction company, because this is a tax credit project, and so all of the management of that has to be outside of the nation to protect the nation from any sort of tax issues that would come up. And so that's being managed by construction through One Fire. So our partners in this are One Fire and Kodak. And so we're, while we do have biweekly updates on that, and they are on budget and they are on schedule, and we do know that all of that budgeting has really already been done at this point, as they source things and that sort of thing. All of that gets done pretty early on in the process.
The Council House is pretty much like the centerpiece of Muscogee's downtown, and I think the spark that contributes to its Muscogee Rising campaign. Part of what you're wanting to do is to bring in a visitor center and place it just across the street, right? Mm-hmm. And what purpose will it serve, and what will it contain?
The purpose of the Council House Visitor Center is a very practical one. Once the restoration of the Council House is complete, we really want to keep the Council House in as pristine as condition as we possibly can. And because of its age, and because of the investment that we've put into restoring the floors and the interpretation and the programming schema that we're using of this historic home or historic museum, we didn't feel like it was the greatest idea for us to be having daily use of office space in there, because that is going to create some wear and tear on the building. And so the first very practical matter of having a visitor center is to have a place to receive guests for having staff to receive those guests, so that we're very close in proximity. We can see if people are wanting to go into the council house. We can come out and meet them there, but we're not officing inside of the council house, just to keep it in the condition that we've invested so much resource into fixing. The other functions that the proposed Council House Visitor Center would serve are collection storage space for the museum and archival collections that we have, office space for the rest of our staff. We have some conference rooms and public space planned out in that area. We would also have a gallery area that optimally would be the permanent home of the Red Stick Gallery as well. So it's going to house all of those things, so that we have space for people to come in, visit. There will be a small research area that's connected to the collection space, so we can pull things from the collection if people want to look at them and see them and view them. That will be available there. But we also we will have places for people to meet from the rest of the nation or from the community. We're short on public spaces, and we really wanted to create a place where people could have that. We could host some meetings at our office building and the visitor center down there. So.
Wow, you're going to get all of this into one building? Oh, geez.
It's in the floor plans. So.
You have any movable walls or anything like that?
Yes, we will.
Okay.
Yeah, definitely. You can't do all this without that. And the bottom floor will also serve as additional gallery or rotating exhibit space. So.
Yeah, the Cherokee Nation over in Tahlequah has quite an extensive visitor center, plus a gift shop and a restaurant and things like that. Is this project going to be as large as that, or perhaps is it a little more conservative?
I'm not clear on the square footage on that visitor center and the restaurant. I know the restaurant's pretty large in and of itself, but we don't have any plans to serve any food or to operate any sort of dining establishment out of there, but we do have plans for kitchenette in there, because if people wanted to host receptions, that would also be an option for them too. So we would have a place to do that, but not on a daily basis would we be serving food.
Speaking of kitchenettes, I know there were some changes to the council house that included something like that, and of course the restrooms and things like that. Will those more modern conveniences and space be changed to a more original kind of thing?
Yes, the bathroom remains in the location that it was originally built in, but the kitchenette is no longer. It will. We tore that out because that's actually the room that the kitchenette was in is the chief's office, and we really felt like we needed the full amount of that space to interpret and tell the story of the principal chiefs of the Muscogee Creek Nation during that period, which is 1865 about to 1906.
Okay. Well, that's quite a schedule of work. Now, on top of all of that, your department has responsibility for the artifacts collection, the one we almost lost to the auction block up north in whatever state that was. But,
in Ohio.
Yeah. Now, since it's been back and returned, what have been the plans for it? How is it stored right now, and will part of it be going on exhibit at some point?
Right now, the collection is stored up at a unit in the Riverwalk in Jenks, so it's still on tribal property very much. It's mostly still in boxes. We didn't really, as an archivist and collections manager, one of the decisions I made as I came in to try to kind of take an inventory of the collection and just kind of get a better feel of what was in there was not to disturb or touch too much the three-dimensional objects in that collection because they're in packing boxes and because some of these objects are very deteriorated. Some of them are old. We have some things from Togabuchi Mound, and those things are very, very old and they're very, very fragile. And the more that we handle them and take them in and out of boxes, the greater the chance there is of damaging those things. So the three-dimensional items like cultural material items, framed art, any sort of things like that, we really haven't done much with because when you take them and put them in and out of boxes, you really have the potential to damage those things or the things that are next to them in that box. So we haven't, we've peeked into the top, done an inventory just to see what was there, what we could see. But the last couple of years I've spent really focusing on the photograph and the manuscript collections because those are standard size boxes, they're small, and they can easily be put in and out of boxes to pack up and move. So we've done some digitization of those photos. By no means do we have all of them digitized as of yet, but we've probably got maybe 600 to 800 of them digitized. And then we've gone through and done a basic inventory on the manuscript collections.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, maybe you can give me an idea of the numbers of items and then perhaps some of the variety. I know when I've walked through there when it was first placed, there were items of furniture and, of course, as you mentioned, paintings. I remember Civil War muskets and bayonets and kind of stuff that little guys would like. But it's much more than that, right?
So this collection, the scope of it includes, of course, photographs, manuscripts, cultural material items. We have a large collection of ball sticks, canes, you name it, we probably have one of those things or more. We have a significant special collection in terms of library items. We have a lot of hymn books, plat map books. We have, of course, that cradle that you were talking about earlier. We have quite a bit of furniture, and a lot of that furniture actually was in the council house. And so some of the plans that we have for that, those pieces, we're going to retain one of the chairs, for example, that's in the best condition. That will remain a permanent collection item, but the other chairs will repair, and we're going to put them back into the council house because we really feel like that's their home. They need to be there, and if we don't put them there, they're just going to be in the collection.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned when we were chatting earlier that one of your team members actually did some incredible research in looking up these items in places that I wouldn't have thought that would lend any help or any information. So why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
So the installation designer, who's our consultant on this project, her name is Nancy Lowe Clark, and she's a wonderful lady. She's just wonderful at doing cases and furniture design. She's actually, that's her kind of specialty and love is furniture design. So she and I and our curator, John Beaver, went through the collection, looked at a lot of the chairs, a lot of the furnishings that we had that we knew were original. We have the old chief's desk as well. That's also original. That's also going back into the council house. She looked at the style of that furniture, really documented it, and tried to find things that were similar to that. And then the other thing that she did, and this is one of her old tricks, is going through Sears catalogs from the late 19th century and seeing what kind of furniture was for sale, or what kind of inkwells were for sale, or what kind of spittoons they carried. Because in all of our historical accounts that we've seen, the council house has spittoons everywhere, and so that's one of the things that will feature inside of the council house.
A lot of tobacco getting chewed.
Yes. So she's gone in and really done a really comprehensive job of what furnishings we need to have in there, and a lot of the things that we've looked at, we've kind of determined that the aesthetic of the council house was one that was very simple. You're not going to find a lot of ornate furniture in there. The simplicity of it's really beautiful. We'll have some pine deal tables, because that's what historical accounts have said, and that were in the House of Warriors and the House of Kings. So we'll have those available there. And the House of Warriors will also be a contemporary meeting space where the council is able to have meetings there again as well. So we're trying to outfit that room, especially to accommodate any sort of meetings that they might want to have there.
Wow, that's incredible. Now, it seems hard to imagine, though, today's council all fitting into one space, and then observers and witnesses, I guess, all in such a limited kind of capacity there. What about the bell? Is it going to ring out again?
The bell actually will be usable, but we'll try to limit that, just because so much work's been done on the belfry in that area, and so it's been repaired. It really wasn't in horrible shape when they went up there and looked at it, so they've cleaned it, they've repaired it, but they did not restore it because we didn't really feel like there was a need for it. It's still usable, but it actually had those pads on the inside, so you couldn't ring it, and that's one of the things that they discovered as they went up there to look at the bell.
So I guess on ceremonial occasions you may hear it ring out again.
That's correct.
And not too many times. You don't want to take it back to where it used to be there. Okay, that was August of last year. Veronica Pipestem was talking about the work being done on the council house at the time, and a prediction, or kind of a preview of what we would be seeing. Now we're going to come up to last weekend here in just a second, but we're going to take a short pause here and be back right after this, so stay with us here on Muscogee Radio. Now, if you were in downtown Muscogee last weekend, you saw the ceremonies going on. Wonderful tents set up for the crowd. Ceremonial grand reopening of the council house. Folks were actually invited in to witness the National Council having its official meeting there, the first in a number of years, well attended. They did several items of business there, so it was an official meeting, but here's an idea of what was going on there if you weren't able to attend. And it was a live recording, so please forgive some of the audio surprises that you may run across here.
Speaker, I'd like to suspend the rules of the committee as a whole to address NCA 184. The title is Law of Muscogee Creek Nation repealing NCA 18-180. Law of Muscogee Creek Nation repealing MCNCA Title 49. Entitled Muscogee Media and creating a new chapter 1 under MCNCA Title 16. Entitled Muscogee Media and amending MCNCA Title 16 subsection 1-1028 entitled Department of Commerce, J entitled Public Relations, and K entitled Independent Statutory Executive Agencies, and amending MCNCA Title 49 subsection 2-102 entitled Policy, and amending subsection 1-102 entitled.
Second. Representative Hills made a motion to suspend the rules to meet in committee as a whole to address NCA 18-184, seconded by Representative Huff. This will require a 2/3 vote of the council present. Roll call vote, please.
David Hill,
Yes.
Robert Hunt,
Yes.
James Jennings,
No.
Adam Jones,
No.
Thomasina Hilla Osborne, Gerald Proctor, Mark Randolph, Richard Scott,
Yes.
Travis Scott,
Yes.
Dale Beaver,
Yes.
Pete Beaver,
No.
Patrick Freeman,
Yes.
Joyce Steer, Johnny Green, Randall Hicks.
Yes.
Speaker, you have 9 in favor, 6 against.
9 in favor, 6 against. That motion failed. Any other items in other business? Hearing none. Announcements from council. Do you have any announcements from council? Representative Randolph?
Thank you, Speaker. I wanted to offer an apology to the Muscogee people, our administration, and to this council, especially to our youth. I made a bad decision, and my intent was never to bring any shame or embarrassment to this nation. And I just wanted to apologize and let you know that I accept full responsibility for my decisions, any consequences that come to me. I accept and I understand that some folks will understand and some won't, and I understand that also. And so I just wanted to offer my deepest apologies. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Oklahoma community is honoring the Native American Month. Today they are having a dinner, a free dinner at 4 p.m. This is additional food will be served, and at 6 p.m. they're having a dance. Yeah, Oklahoma community dinner. They invited everybody in, to come out and eat. Always have plenty of food.
Thank you, Representative Hicks. Any other announcements from council? I have one. I want to say first off, thank you to everyone that was part of making this happen today with the renovation of the council house. No Cultural Center Archives Manager, Ms. Pipestem. Everybody can see you. Thank you very much for everything you've done here. Thank you very much for everything. With that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Representative Huff made a motion to adjourn, seconded by Representative Proctor. All in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. This time I'd like to ask Representative Proctor, please give a benediction.
Lucian Tiger III, Speaker, Muscogee Nation National Council.
Okay, now you have just presided over the first meeting of the National Council to occur here in this fully restored council house. What are your thoughts on being a part of this today?
It's an amazing feeling. Like I just stated earlier, it's a historic moment for Mvskoke Creek Nation to have this building restored in the condition it is now. All the artifacts that are up on the walls, just the history. I think it's a great benefit to the nation to have possession of this again. Like I say, we retained this back in 2010. We've done a lot of work, a lot of commitment from the nation, through council, through the executive branches, Chief Ellis, Chief Tiger. Everybody's had a part in this, and it's a great opportunity, a great day for Muscogee Creek citizens.
Okay, did you have any internal feeling, pride, satisfaction, anything like that when you gavelled us into session today?
Yes, sir. And with that being said, I would agree. I think this is a beautiful building, beautiful renovation. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes, sir. And, a lot of times as a nation in the past, we've had issues completing projects, getting them to look as we thought they would look, and trying to make that come to fruition. And I believe the cultural department and the archives department did a great job of overseeing the renovation of this building. So it's definitely something I was definitely proud to be a part of, and it's an honor to be a part of this.
Thank you, sir. Any last thoughts?
No, sir. It's right. Just great to see you here. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you all for coming. I'm so glad to see so many people here. The council house has finally reached the last part of its return to the Muscogee people. The building was purchased in 2010 under the Ellis administration. The collection purchased in 2013 under the Tiger administration. And the restoration and exhibit installation that we could reopen is completed under the current administration. We hope that the story we have told in this place
is one that is familiar to you. We hope that you will find the names of your relatives, tribal towns, and other markers of identity that are familiar to you here. The Council House is not only a historic site, but it's also a monument to Muscogee Creek culture, governance, and sovereignty during a time of transition for the Muscogee people. In the process of preparing the Council House for today, I had the privilege of reviewing century-old documents and items associated with Muscogee Creek people, such as Samuel Shakoti, who served as the first elected principal chief at the Council House, of Spaicha, who resisted the Dawes Commission and its efforts to break up Creek lands, and of Alexander Posey, who, in addition to being an accomplished writer and educator, also served as one of the Creek leaders to the state of Sequoia Convention. As you look around today, you will get a glimpse into the lives of Muscogee Creek people in this era, between 1865 and 1907, and the stories of their lives. It has been a great honor for me to be a part of the team entrusted to prepare this beloved building for today. And believe me, it was a team effort, for sure. I think Jesse covered, Secretary of Interior covered kind of some of the people from Mvskoke Creek Nation who participated and were an integral part of this project. But this also would not have been possible without support from the National Council, the Office of the Chiefs. We also want to thank Cecil Schaefer Architects, One Fire LLC, Nancy Lowe Clark of I-10 Museum Services, Zach Beveridge, Exhibit Concepts Incorporated, Victoria Tiger, Amy Bradshaw, Tulsa Woodsmiths, Dr. Thomas Foster from University of Tulsa, Kelsey Clardy, Angela Cooper, and again, all of the Muscogee Creek Nation departments who have been a part of our team. We also want to really thank the volunteers who signed up so quickly to help us today. We thank you, and we just want you to come and enjoy the exhibits. I think we're going to do a closing prayer, but after that, there's food that will be available on the south lawn, and we will open up the entire council house to you to come and look around. And if you see one of us, then you have
key as we have moved through this process. The meeting that we had this morning was the first official meeting of the National Council in this building since 2010. And I do hope that you do take the time to go through each one of the rooms here, the tours today, because it's our history. This building is, I think, about 131 years old. And to have it restored with the help of the National Council appropriating money with historic tax credits, we have what we have now. And it's for you. And it's for all of our citizens, those who reside in other states or throughout the world. When they come to Muscogee, they like to come back here. And so now they can come into the building. They can see our history displayed, so they can teach that to their children and grandchildren. So that, Second Chief, and I'm so grateful. So from the office of the Principal Chief, on behalf of the Second Chief and myself, we just want to say welcome. We hope you.
Okay, the activity at the reopening of the Muscogee Creek Nation Council House. Apologies for the audio there. It was a difficult situation in trying to get that recorded, but we managed to do what we could, and we thought it was important enough to bring it to you. So we went ahead and used that piece. Let's see, where are we here? We want to talk about a piece of legislation that was presented and discussed during that period, actually. It involves the issue of freedom of the press, and we've got a little bit of information to share with you, but we're going to take another short pause here and be right back with more of our Muscogee radio program. So please stay with us here on The Brew. Okay, the item of business that we're going to be looking at here and taking a quick overview is the bill number NCA 18180 that was introduced on November 7th by Adam Jones III and co-sponsored by Pete Beaver and James Jennings. It was a law of the Creek Nation repealing MCNCA Title 49, entitled Muscogee Media, and creating a new Chapter 11. In essence, what it did was repeal the Freedom of the Press law and placing Muscogee Media under the direction of the Department of Commerce. We know that there are a lot of people with very strong feelings both ways regarding this issue. We will be working to bring you a clear discussion of that particular bill. And we will be contacting the sponsors of NCA 18180, and hopefully we'll be able to get an interview with them about the reasoning behind that particular piece of legislation, and make sure that our reporting, of course, is balanced there. But what we're going to be concentrating on right now is NCA 18184. You hopefully heard the discussion of possible consideration of that legislation. In essence, it is a law of the Muscogee Creek Nation repealing NCA 18180. And kind of putting things back the way it was before the repeal of the Freedom of the Press law. We have an interview with Representative David Hill, who brought that piece of legislation to the floor and discussed it. He graciously stopped by our office to talk with us. And as I said, we will be pursuing interviews with the sponsors of the original bill, 18180, specifically Mr. Jones, Mr. Beaver, and Mr. Jennings, to get their comments on their feelings behind bringing that law into discussion. But right now, we're going to go ahead and run our interview with Mr. Hill regarding the repeal of the repeal, so to speak, and I'll let you hear what he had to say regarding that legislation.
David Hill, Muscogee Creek Nation National Council, Creek District, currently serving as second speaker. We
saw the reopening of the council house over this past weekend on the 17th, and part of the day was, of course, council business, and they handled several pieces of legislation at normal order of business. But towards the end of that particular agenda, there was a piece that you had introduced, I believe, dealing with the Freedom of the Press law. It was in essence, a repeal. Is that correct? First of all, why don't you tell me kind of what that was all about?
Yes, it was basically 15184. It's just repealed the original legislation presented the week before. It was 18-180. And basically putting it back as it was prior to that legislation, and also just put some more wording into it to amend the language. Didn't have a copy with me, but I was going to kind of recite that. Basically just, I don't want to say more accountable, but you know how each branch, as well as executive branch and the council, are held accountable for things we do, and that's what basically just some more language, just basically just kind of not oversee the media, not so much that, but just kind of just strengthen the language a little bit more.
Okay, if you'll hold on 1 second, we are recording. Now, in essence, what does this bill do again? What's the language there?
The language that we was going to amend on that was on NCA 18184 was subsection 2-102 underneath policy. Currently it states all news reported by Muscogee Media shall be independent without undue influence of any political interest or interference. And the language I was going to add behind that was all news reported shall be consistent in journalism standards, authentic and free from sensationalism, deliberate misinformation, and deliberate propaganda. Basically, just going to add that language to it.
That's pretty much the standards and the ethics we have always.
Yeah, currently the ethics code that you have, and I think you also have it. There's a link on your website as well that shows all that. Yeah.
Okay, now the big question is to why did you feel it was important for you to come up with this particular bill?
Well, basically, that's news, and we have the citizens have a right to know what's going on within the nation, and the way it was, and also don't want to have any type of censor, in which several of the council members felt that it wasn't going to affect it anyway. But not knowing, you never know. And as the citizens' right, that's free press. As throughout the world today, you can read the paper. There's good, bad news, and that's just part of life. But just to make it right, I felt that need to repeal that and add that language in there to try to strengthen it. And we can, and I had mentioned to some of the council reps that Representative Scott and Representative Huff was very much in support of this as well. So we try to add that language in there, but it can also be amended as well. And hopefully, once it comes back through, we can add some more. And I encourage the other council members, if they felt if we needed to amend that as also some more language, that I welcome that. And also, I'm pretty sure that the Muscogee media would welcome that as well.
During the discussions, we heard pretty much that that kind of thinking and the way people felt. Let me ask you, first of all, is it unusual for a piece of legislation to be introduced and passed on the same day? And I understand this was an emergency session, so that kind of raised a question.
You talking about the original repeal? That's pretty common on to come through, but one single one, kind of out of the ordinary. There's usually 3 or 4. In that case, that night, I think there was 5 pieces. But during the one I presented Saturday morning, it was to bring it to the committee as a whole, which it failed. It failed twice. So it's hopefully with some of the discussions that we had that I thought I would bring it up again at general session and got the same results. But, now through the process, it'll go through the BF&J committee. Once that's passed through there, it'll come to the general session again for all the council members to vote on it.
When it goes before the committee, then that's what I presume is its usual hearing process. Now, would there be a room on that agenda for public witnesses?
Yes. Since it wasn't brought to the committee as a whole, there was no discussion. But once it's presented at the committee level of business finance, there'll be discussions then. And that's where, you bring out your pros and cons, so to speak, and then the chairman would call a vote.
The word negative, the phrase negative coverage was figured very prominently in what we heard that evening, the first time that this legislation to repeal the Freedom Act came up. What's your perception of the coverage that Muscogee media has been providing? Was it too negative? How did you see it?
I wouldn't say negative. As again, that's news, and I'm pretty sure the way it's covered here, you have to get your facts and present it. I did talk to the sponsor of the previous bill the night before, and his reasoning wasn't really negative. It was more or less funding. So I spoke to him about it, and I think there's a way we can come up with a situation on that as far as the funding. Negative, I think Judge just probably one individual that may have said that, but other than that, I think it was more or less the funding portion of it.
Okay. in a couple of stories we've seen in opinion pieces that had mentioned two instances where Muscogee media had reported on something that might have cast a negative light on a particular representative, one at the beginning of the year, I think, and then one fairly recently. Is that sort of thing ever been discussed, or you got some thoughts on whether we should or maybe shouldn't be doing that kind of thing?
I really have no opinion on that, to be honest with you. What had happened, like, again, that was the news. As representative, one representative has spoke Saturday at general session. He didn't hold anything against the media for reporting that. That was news. He was just, and I commend him for standing up and, discussing that with everyone. That took a big person to do that. As far as the rest of them, I really have no comment on that.
Well, that representative got quite an applause for standing up and talking to that. How'd that make you feel?
He was real honest about it, so it, like I said, it took a big person to do that. So I had to commend him for doing that.
Now, is this something that you've heard about from other citizens? What's public opinion that you've heard?
As far as this representative, or
no, about the repeal of freedom of the press change there.
I did get some calls that night, text messages on why it was removed, and the citizens feel that that's free press. How are we going to know what the government's doing, good or bad? They feel that that's their right as well to know what's going on. Some read the Muscogee, the paper. Some listen to the news, the radio, as you're broadcasting, and that's their way of finding out what's truly going on with the nation. So it's real important to them as well. So as an elected official, which we're elected by the people and the citizens, as we're always saying, we're their voice. So I felt that it was my duty as a council representative to do what I felt was right.
And you plan to pursue this further? There will be other actions that you might get behind?
Yes. As I mentioned, the next step is taken in front of the committee, which will be assigned to the BF&J. And once that goes through, all discussions and will take place and determine if we need to add any more language or do anything else to strengthen it, and also once I get through, I'm gonna try to discuss it with Chief as well, get his input. It takes everyone's input.
Sure. That's pretty much all the questions I wanted to ask you. At this point, is there something you'd like to add, a final thought or something important we haven't touched on?
Not at this moment. Maybe later on when get ready to present the legislation, but at this moment I think I'm good with that.
Okay. After having said that, I always end up asking another question, but what has been the mood on the council? Could this really have the potential of being a divisive issue?
Well, I've heard that comment this weekend. I felt like it kind of divided the council, but I never felt that way. I've had some veteran colleagues tell me before, once we vote, we leave there and leave it as, just leave it as that. And I've had some that comment to me, it's kind of hard to figure out how I'm going to vote. They said, you vote from your heart, and once we leave here, the Mound Building or wherever, the council house, that we have to vote on how we feel is best for the nation. So I just try to tend to leave it like that. I never call anyone, why did you vote this way? Why did you vote that way? I feel that's their vote, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay. Representative Hill, thank you very much, sir. We appreciate you taking time and coming down for us.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
Okay, we'd like to share some of the language of these pieces of legislation and some of the bit of the public reaction here. Make sure that our listeners here get a good feel for what's going on. Now, this all started, of course, back in November the 7th. Bill number NCA 18180 was introduced, of course, by Mr. Jones, and it repealed NCA Title 49, entitled Muscogee Media, and created a new Chapter 11 under MCNA Title 16, entitled Muscogee Media, and amending that Title 16, entitled Department of Commerce. And also J, entitled Public Relations, and K, entitled Independent Statutory Executive Agencies. So Section 1, I guess the heart of the matter, MCNA Title 49, is repealed in its entirety, which was the legislation, the law that granted freedom of the press status to Muscogee Media. So it's been changed and is codified in Title 16. Now, you'll probably have to go get a the legal handbook regarding the nation to follow all of this. It confuses me sometimes, but it's all there. We want to make sure that the language was shared under Title 16. The Chapter 11, it covers Muscogee Media under 101, under 102, an advertising policy. 103 is equipment, 104 access, and that says all reporters, radio and video crews are allowed access to tribal complex and Muscogee Creek Nation facilities. Under 105, it's the creative rights that Muscogee Media shall retain the rights to previously produced media, including but not limited to written, visual, or audio creations and interviews. Anyway, it goes on with more of the legal descriptions involved here, including the Department of Commerce's role. And under Section 4, it says effective date, it shall become effective immediately upon a proper approval and execution in accordance with the requirements of the Muscogee Creek Nation Constitution. So that was November 7th. It is in effect. The changes have been met. Muscogee Media staff have met with and discussed things with Eli McIntosh of the Department of Commerce Secretary, and kind of given us our direction we shall go. Everyone has been careful to say that they do not want to censor or things like that, but that's part of the future, I presume, that we'll find out. Now, under the NCA 18184 that was discussed by Mr. Hill, it would have taken all of that to action and created the Independent Statutory Executive Agency, Muscogee Media, once again. And NCA 18180 is hereby repealed in its entirety. That's under Section 1. That was his intention there. And the bill goes on to discuss other amendments and things. Policy under Section 102 says all news reported shall be consistent with journalism standards, authentic and free from sensationalism, deliberate misinformation, and deliberate propaganda. So that was the intention of the bill. It did not meet with approval during that section, and Mr. Hill says he will look to other methods to deal with that. His bill would have put us back in the independent agency status, and we would have gone on as before. Some of the public reactions came from the Native American Journalists Association, the Society for Professional Journalists, and other agencies who are concerned with what happens with tribal free press. Now, there are other four tribes that carry such a law and have been dealing with it for a number of years. But at that meeting on the 7th, the council voted 7-6 to repeal the Free Press Act and put the Muscogee media folks under the auspices of the Department of Commerce. Now, one of the comments we heard during that session, there was no personal problem against the staff. There, quote, just needs to be more positive coverage. So that's the rationale behind some of these meetings and some of the things that are being discussed. Now, as we said before, we will make the effort to talk to the original sponsors of the original bills to make sure that their thoughts and feelings are covered. That would include Mr. Adam Jones, Mr. Pete Beaver, and James Jennings. We hope that they will consent to talk with us about the bill and future discussions and perhaps legislative actions regarding this bill. Okay, enough of that. I'm sure that your head may be spinning from all of the legalese that's there. I know mine will, but we will strive to make sure that we give you some fair and balanced coverage of the issue. All right, for some community announcements this evening, if you're interested in Oklahoma City Thunder Youth Basketball, there is the Hustle Camp tonight, the 21st, of course, at the Muscogee Dome here in Mulcogee. It designed to play with youth basketball players and give them a chance to improve on court skills, off-court life skills, and become inspired through the sport. So instruction on technical fundamentals, developmental drills, keynote Nike N7 giveaways, and other goodies. But be aware it is $55 per camper, so it is not a free one. Okay, another basketball-related announcement here. Battle in the Dome coming up with the Bacone Lady Warriors versus the Haskell Lady Indians at the Nation's Dome. That's on November 26th at 6 p.m., and you can shoot around it at 5 p.m., and recruiting opportunities for high school athletes. So you might want to check that one out and see the battle between these two teams. With the holiday season upon us, the Wetumpka Indian Community Christmas Bazaar is coming up Saturday, December 1st from 9 to 4 at the Wetumpka Indian Center for your opportunity to buy Christmas gifts and things. If you're interested, once more, Saturday, December 1st, 9 to 4 at the Wetumpka Indian Center. And, of course, the Native American Christmas Market, Saturday, December 1st, 10 to 5 at the Glenpool Indian Community Activity Building. That's 1400 South Casper Avenue in Glenpool. That's the Jinx exit off of 75. More than 30 vendors, so you might want to check that out. So we hope that you'll have a chance to pick up things, and including help the folks running the Angel Tree Project. So please help us out. It is the Christmas season, and we hope that you will find it in your heart to help those folks who may be struggling this time of year, and share our Christmas spirit. Okay, we are going to cut it off now and get out of your way and keep on doing what we do here. We thank you for listening to us here on Muscogee Radio. Gary Fife, Jaho Jifkados, Mado Mabo Hedges, Scott, Muscogee Radio.